Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play this video and talk about things that are going on, but explain what's going on, and talk about things that I think that are being done right and are done wrong. Here we go.
The second shooting happened June 29th, 2023 at 925 San Pedro Drive Northeast. This critical incident community briefing will provide information about a male who was attacking multiple victims with a knife, which resulted in an officer-involved shooting. Just like the first one, a word of caution, the images and video may be disturbing. When police officers use force to arrest a subject or defend against an attack, it can be graphic and difficult to watch. In addition, there may be strong language by those shown in the video. 4 officers discharged their weapons during this incident. The first officer, Eric Wilinski, has been with the department since 2014 and has no prior officer-involved shootings, and he and all the officers involved on this day were working with the Southeast Area Command. Officer Christian Cordova has been with the department since 2015. He has 1 prior officer-involved shooting. Officer Brenda Johnson has been with the department since 2018. She does not have any prior officer-involved shootings. And Officer Violeta Baca has been with the department since 2019, has no prior officer-involved shooting. At the time of today's press conference, these officers are not back to full duty yet, but we do expect them back soon. Person shot by police was 25-year-old Jeramiah Salyards. The incident occurred in the Southeast Area Command. On that date, around 9:24 p.m., officers were dispatched to 925 San Pedro, which is a McDonald's restaurant. The male victim reported to police that he was giving Jeramiah Salyards a ride and was buying him food from McDonald's. And while sitting in the drive-thru, the victim who was driving stated Jeremiah just said sorry and stabbed him in the neck. Jeremiah then fled the scene wearing a backpack and wearing all black clothes and armed with a multicolored knife. Here's one of the 911 calls we received that initiated a police response.
Call my mom for my nephew.
911 emergency.
Yes, hi. My name is Austin. I am at the McDonald's here on San Pedro and Lomas. And I was ordering my food when I got hit from behind. Apparently some gentleman was stabbed and he is bleeding right now in his vehicle. And we're in the drive-thru right now.
Okay, so this is at Lomas McDonald's?
Yes, Lomas and San Pedro.
Is the person who stabbed him still there?
I don't know. Apparently this guy ran off.
This is video of the victim getting stabbed from the McDonald's. You'll see the passenger door open on the black vehicle on the bottom right, and Jeramiah Salyards flees southbound. The victim had multiple stab wounds on his neck and face and was transported to the hospital in stable condition, and he survived. There's no audio on this video. Around 11:50 p.m. So
I don't know what the background here is. I mean, I may have missed what he said, but the guy was taking this dude to McDonald's to give him some food, buy him some food even, and this dude just stabs him in the freaking neck and face. So I don't know. Like, was this guy like an Uber driver? Was he just like picking this dude up out of the kindness of his heart? If it was him just wanting to be a good person, you know, maybe he's like a good Christian person or something, he's wanting to help someone out who looks like they're homeless or down on hard times, that's great of him to want to be a good person like that. And good, peaceful people like that exist in this world. But you have to be sensible about how you go about helping people, because some people are snakes in the grass. They are mean, vicious little rattlesnakes. You can't trust everybody. And there are certain people that you should not trust. one key giveaway when they showed his photo. He had a face tattoo. I don't know, like out of all the stuff I talk about in this video, if there's anything in the comment section that anyone's gonna gripe about, it's gonna say you shouldn't judge somebody by their looks. Don't judge a book by its cover. Plenty of good people have face tats. Blah 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 blah. All right, whatever. Face tats, in my experience, indicate that the person does not make good decisions in life. You will not see CEOs of places like Walmart, Target, Lowe's, Cracker Barrel, whatever, having face tats. You just do not see people who make good decisions in life having face tats. Now, does that mean that there's no CEOs out there that have face tats? No, not at all. Plenty of people out there who are CEOs in their own little kind of niche industry are likely to have face tats. Lots of musicians have them and everything, but the point I'm trying to make is good, solid people that you ain't got to worry about, they just don't have face tats. Okay? So that was clue number one that you should have picked up on, is, hey, this dude's got this face tat. That's a little concerning. That's something to think about. A person's mannerisms in their body language. Obviously, we have no video of what this dude's mannerisms or body language is like, what their facial features are like, how they look at you, how they're interacting. Those are things that can be utilized to clue you in on whether or not someone's going to be a danger to you. Sometimes you can just pick a vibe up off of people. At least I can. Other people, maybe not so much, because they're not around a bunch of violent fuckers all the time. Like, I have spent a good majority of my life dealing with violent people, dealing with bad people, mean people, people who realistically do not need to be breathing. So I do have a lot of experience dealing with people like that, and I have been able to pick up on those people's body languages and mannerisms and their facial features, and not just features, but their expressions, how they look at you, what they look at, just all these little things that I pick up on. I can tell, you know what, I need to watch myself around this person. Other people, because they have not had those experiences, I could see how they could miss out on certain cues. But there's even some people, even if you have no experience dealing with the worst of the worst, you can still pick up, I think, you can still pick up, like, hey, there's something wrong with this person. Like, you go, think back to your days in school. Think back to your workplace. There was that one, you've had to have come across an instance where there's one person that everyone knew, hey, this person's a little off. Like, we're not going to hang out with him. We're not inviting him or her to the cookout. Was this guy showing those type of signs? I have no idea. We don't see any video of him or anything like that. But that's something to think about. Trusting your gut when you are wanting to go help people. Don't be putting yourself in a position where you can be easily victimized. All right, moving on.
2 hours later, while officers were still on scene at the stabbing, a witness approached officers and stated that a male subject with a pink and orange backpack holding a knife was at Lomas in Louisiana, just down the street. Officers arrived on scene and began to give commands to that individual, who they believed was the same subject who had stabbed the victim at McDonald's. Officers saw that subject, Jeramiah Salyards, walking in the median of Louisiana and saw a knife in his hand. Officers told Jeramiah to drop the knife. Jeramiah did not comply and ran from the median of the street directly north on Louisiana and then westbound towards a bus stop that had 3 individuals sitting at it. The 3 men who did not appear to know Jeramiah were sitting at the bus stop. Jeramiah raised the knife in front of officers, and while looking at the men raise the knife, the men stood up, appeared to be in fear, and started to walk away or run away from Jeramiah. As Jeramiah got closer to the men, he appeared to be threatening them with the knife, which resulted in an officer-involved shooting. During the officer shooting, 2 of the 3 victims that were at the bus stop were hit by police rounds. This is Officer Cordova's video. He does fire his weapon.
Albuquerque, please stop! Drop the knife or you're gonna get shot! You're gonna get shot! Stop! You're gonna get shot! Stop it! Stop! Drop the knife! You can get shot again! Drop it! Drop the knife! You're gonna get shot! Drop it! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Drop the fucking knife!
Drop it!
Drop the knife!
Drop it! Drop the knife! Let's get behind the vehicle. Drop the knife!
Drop it!
Drop it!
Drop the fucking knife!
Drop it!
Hey, behind the vehicle.
Drop it!
Hey, behind!
This is the video from Officer Johnson, who does fire her weapon.
Drop it! Drop it! Drop fire!
Drop the knife!
Drop it! Drop it! Drop it! Drop
You're
it!
gonna get shot! Drop it!
Drop
Drop the
it!
knife! Drop the knife! Drop the fucking knife!
Drop it!
Drop the knife!
Drop it!
Drop the knife!
Drop the knife!
Drop it!
Drop it!
Drop the fucking knife!
Drop it!
Hey, behind the vehicle for
Drop it!
Hey, behind the vehicle for cover!
This is video from Officer Baca, who does fire her weapon.
Hey, drop the knife! Drop the knife!
Drop the knife!
Drop it! Drop it! Drop the knife right now!
You're gonna get shot! Drop it!
Drop it! Let go of it!
Drop the fucking knife!
Drop it!
Drop the knife!
Drop it!
Drop the knife!
Drop the knife!
Drop it!
Drop it!
Drop the fucking knife!
Drop it!
Hey, behind the vehicle.
Drop it!
Hey, behind the vehicle for cover!
And this is Officer Walensky's video, who does fire his weapon.
Drop it! Drop the knife! You can get shot
Drop the
again!
knife!
Drop it!
Drop it!
Drop the knife! You're gonna get shot! Drop it! Drop the knife!
Hey!
Drop the knife!
Someone get a 40.
Drop the knife!
Drop it!
Drop the knife!
Keep getting it. Let's get behind the vehicle for cover, guys. Drop the knife! Let's get behind the vehicle. Drop it!
Drop the fucking knife!
Hey, behind the vehicle for
Drop
cover,
it!
guys. Hey, behind the vehicle for cover!
2 knives were located on scene. This first one had the blade closed. This is the second knife, which is multicolored as the initial victim described. The blood on this knife is currently being tested against DNA standards of that original victim at the McDonald's. Again, as we believe this was the knife that was used in that stabbing. During this incident, a total of 25 casings were recovered from the scene, all from police firearms. The subject, we believe, was hit at least 7 times. We were only able to locate about 2 additional impacts that hit a fence behind where Jeramiah was at the bus stop. The person shot by police and who died at scene was 25-year-old Jeramiah Elisiah Salyards. He had been arrested in 2020 for stabbing a city bus driver several times on the southwest part of town. He was kept in custody pending trial. He did actually have a trial in May of 2022 where a jury convicted him, and a judge gave him a 3-year prison sentence. He'd already been in custody about 2 years at that time, so he served an additional 1 year in prison and was just released on May 4th, 2023, and was currently at the beginning of a 2-year parole term.
What the fuck? Oh my god. See, this a failure of the judicial system, a miscarriage of justice. This dude should not have been walking the fucking streets. His ass needed to be in prison. Oh man. You know, so the people who got shot, they're going to end up suing the police. Right? Like, we know that's going to happen. What needs to happen, though, is they need to sue the fucking judge, the prosecutor, everybody involved in that criminal case that he stabbed a CD bus driver. And then 3 years for that. What? No. And then because he got time served, only did 1 year. That is complete bullshit. And he'd been under supervision of probation and parole. He's on parole. Who's checking on this dude? You can't tell me this dude who's out doing the same shit again. There had to have been something this dude was doing while under probation that if someone was on it, they would have caught him. There's just that fucking probation and parole. Their asses need to be sued too. God, man.
On both cases, over the next several months, the police department will continue to investigate and analyze this incident. We'll continue interviewing any new witnesses that come forward and complete any forensic tests. After the investigation is complete, a force review board will forward the findings to the Superintendent of Police Reform to determine if these incidents met the high standards of the Albuquerque Police Department. The MATF will forward the case to the District Attorney's Office, who will make any determination of criminal charges, and will help answer any questions.
Alright, so since the questions might involve the other shooting incident that I did a video on, let's go back into the shooting aspect of itself. So he stabs dude, he goes somewhere else, and then they get approached and are told that he's somewhere else, and so they go to get him.
He does fire his weapon.
Albuquerque, please stop! Drop the knife or you're gonna get shot! You're gonna get shot! Stop! You're gonna get shot! Stop it! Stop!
I think that the officers would have been justified in shooting him well before than when they did. He has already obviously been involved in stabbing another person. He is walking towards other people with this weapon, obviously ignoring all police commands to stop. This over in here would have been the better time.
You're gonna get shot! Stop it!
This would have been the better time to use deadly physical force.
Stop!
This officer who did fire I think at that point, his angles, I suspect that this officer's rounds probably did not hit any of the victims. He may have hit the bad guy, but I just don't think that due to his angle, he hit any of the victims here.
Drop it! Drop the knife! You can get shot again! Drop it! Drop the knife! You're gonna get shot! Drop it! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Drop the fucking knife!
Drop it!
Drop the knife!
Drop it!
Drop the
knife!
Let's get behind the vehicle.
Drop the knife!
Drop it!
So he failed to listen. He failed to drop that knife. He started to get up, and they used more force against him. I think that was appropriate for them to do. And I would argue that I think it would be appropriate for them to go ahead and use force before that, because they have another injured person on the ground. A person who has been shot and needs pre-hospital trauma care. You can't go render aid to this person if the other person has a weapon out and is still a deadly physical threat. So to be able to protect this person, to save this person's life, it would be necessary to use deadly physical force against this guy to make him no longer be a threat. So he's laying there holding on the knife, still refusing to let go of it. I would argue that they would have the green light to go ahead and use deadly physical force to make him not be a threat anymore. That way they could quickly move up and start rendering aid to a true innocent person.
Drop the fucking knife! Drop it!
Hey, behind!
So they start saying behind the vehicle. No. Like, you have an injured person up there. There's no sense in going and taking cover behind your vehicles. He's right there. This victim is right there. This victim is bleeding. There's no sense in taking cover behind a vehicle. You got sufficient numbers of people here to go forward, shoot this guy some more if he needs to be shot some more, if he don't want to fucking follow directions, or get close enough to paint his face with pepper spray or shoot some tasers into him. Number one priority is rendering medical aid to this innocent bystander. Serve and protect. This dude's bleeding out. You don't go hide behind a fucking car. I would say that it was most likely this woman whose rounds may have hit the bystander due to the angles.
Hey, behind the fucking knife!
The knife! You get drop it!
I don't think that this officer would likely have any rounds going into the bystander. The bystander's already down at this point, so I think this officer is kind of in the clear. I think it was realistically the two female officers who most likely sent rounds into the bystanders. Alright, so let's go listen to their questions and see what's going on here.
On both cases, over the next several months, the police department will continue to investigate and analyze this incident. We'll continue interviewing any new witnesses that come forward and complete any forensic tests. After the investigation is complete, a Force Review Board will forward the findings to the Superintendent of Police Reform to determine if these incidents met the high standards of the Albuquerque Police Department. The MATF will forward the case to the District Attorney's Office, who will make any determination of criminal charges. And will help answer any questions.
Were any non-lethal methods employed with this second shooting on the Louisiana bus stop?
None were fired during that incident.
Gotcha. Why not? Before the shooting commenced. With the first incident, you saw the taser being
I'll let Chief handle.
You know, I think if you look at the video, and of course those are questions that are going to come up, but when we're talking about less lethal, it's always was the feasibility and were we able to utilize less lethal given the situation. When you look at it, you could tell that, number one, this incident evolves very quickly. It goes from some officers walking on foot to 2 police cars passing them, and then it is a matter of seconds before you hear them giving the individual orders. And if you look at the video closely, you'll see the suspect actually touches one of the victims on the back. And I was concerned, and I even asked the question, did he stab him? Because you could see that he clearly was already touching this individual. And we will have to determine if it was feasible for them to utilize less lethal, or if this escalated so quickly that less lethal was not an option during this situation.
What are the protocols for shooting a suspect like that when bystanders are so close?
You know, we have 4 firearm rules that is ingrained in our mind during the academy, and every single officer knows those 4 rules. Number 1, all guns are always loaded. Number 2, do not let your muzzle cover anything you're not willing to destroy. Number 3, be sure of your target and what is beyond it. And when we talk about the last 2 in particular, those are questions that we're going to have to answer during the administrative investigation. It's like, what was in line? What were the officers' perceptions? What was going through their mind at that time? So we do have to answer some of those questions, and when the investigation comes out, we should have some answers as to what the officers are observing, why shots were fired, what they saw, and why it was necessary at the moment with these individuals in line with them.
Do you happen to know what prompted the second round of shooting then that took place?
If you look at the video, you can see the individual is still within arm's reach of the victim that I talked about earlier, where you can see he actually puts his hand on the right side of his back. You can see they're still within distance. The officers are still giving orders. You hear them asking, bring a 40 up. A 40 is less lethal. So the officers are asking for less lethal to get there. So we are happy that they were trying to transition to less lethal. The investigation will have to show, and the officers will have to justify. But from the video, what I could see is that you could see the individual had turned back around, had gotten on all 4s, and the officers are going to have to give their perception of what occurred and why they deployed deadly force again at that point.
How many times was each of the other 2 people shot, and what are their current conditions?
Kyle, do you have specifics? I think one was shot. The main one that went down that was most injured, I believe, was 4, and the other one was once in the knee. The one in the knee has been released, and the one with 4 is still in the hospital.
Or is rehabbing like an
Or-
inpatient?
Okay, so
Like he's an inpatient?
Yeah, no, they're expected to survive.
I think 6 wounds, is that right?
Yes, it's correct, and he's waiting at the hospital to go to another.
Okay.
He's spoken to us.
Yeah.
Okay. Were
He's
those
stable.
men transients? Do you guys know if they were transients or if they were?
I don't know
Did-
their sheltered status right now.
Given the fact it's 3 in the morning, there's no bus service, I think it would be safe to say that the individuals may have been unhoused.
Last year you mentioned there was 18 officer-involved shootings. What's
Yes.
the number right now?
We are at 7?
7.
7 officer involved shooting, 3 fatal.
And 3 fatal, you said?
Yes.
A follow-up on bystanders. What is the protocol when people like that are injured? Do you guys pay for their hospital bills, or what is that?
That is something that goes through city risk management, and city risk management will make determinations and work with them. One thing that I did talk to Commander Vega about is we wanted to make sure we got resources out to them immediately from the city, and he assured me that resources were immediately provided in terms of giving them the support that they needed.
Going back to the first shooting, does that count as well for the damage done in the Mesquite market? Does that fall into that category as well?
They would go through a risk management process and proceed. A lot of times, in general, we are going to end up paying for it as a city. Matt?
How did Salyards know the initial victim that he was in the car with?
I don't have that information.
The victim said he wanted to help out a parent transient person by, he says he does this, he gets little lights and gives him food, and that's all he was doing.
Okay.
Like he had just met him minutes or moments before the stabbing took place.
And he's recovering in the hospital?
He was released.
Oh, okay.
Has OMI released any information to you guys about the toxicology reports for both suspects?
No, but one of the things that we did do is, because I think it's important that we know the toxicology of individuals, and we all know that somebody under the influence of narcotics or other drugs sometimes can be have different behavior than those that are not. So one of the things that we are doing now is we are making sure that we do have those toxicology reports eventually provided to us, and it generally takes about 6 months, George. 6 months. But we recently did get some toxicology reports on other officer-involved shootings, and I think they showed all that almost everybody involved in those were under the influence of some kind of drug or alcohol.
We're gonna have a news conference.
We'll have a news conference. We'll talk about all this. Kind of like what we did at the end of last year, at the end of 18. We're kind of planning something like that in the near future to talk about these first 7 of 2022. Yes, Matt?
With the El Mesquite Market one, I'm sure you guys have analyzed it, and I don't know if you guys have dug this deep. It was kind of fast. Do you know if at any point officers were firing either in the direction of people or at each other? At one point, it looks like one officer gets on the ground with a rifle, and he's kind of firing this way. There's another officer on this side. Has that been looked at all, and is that something you guys have come to?
That's something they're going to be looking at. There's something that's going to be come out during the course of the investigation. From the video itself that I see myself, there were just people all over. And I think it's going to be very hard for us to say that there weren't citizens who were there. But also, it's one of those, if you look at it, you know, and the one word, if I could use one word to describe both scenes, chaos. I mean, you could clearly tell that these incidents escalated rather extremely quickly. And all of a sudden, the urgency became this subject's going into the El Mesquite Market. This subject is actively chasing these individuals armed with a knife. Officers had to make quick decisions, and it is very chaotic with the amount of individuals that are involved and the fact that they're taking into account the citizens who are in the general location of the subject that's armed with a firearm.
How many rounds did Peter fire?
I believe I was told
12. We feel confident it could have been 13.
Okay, but at least 12.
At least 12. I think it's important to note that Mr. Peter chose the location to pull the gun and fire at officers.
Mm-hmm.
Officers were actually trying to give him space and time to safely get taken into custody, and he chose that escalation path in a very crowded supermarket.
Do you think this will bring about training that will look at this? Because I mean, I feel like I've been covering police shootings for a bit, and I haven't seen one necessarily that was kind of like both of these. And you think that's going to be kind of something you guys will look at for like training with like crowded?
Yes, and that's something that right off the back when these came up, myself and Deputy Chief Lowe spoke about. She's in charge of the academy now. Was that we really want to get to the point where we're using incidents that happen with the Albuquerque Police Department to drive our reality-based training, and we're putting officers in the exact same scenario that their fellow officers have been in the past, and we use that as a teaching point to see how we start carving out behavior. These are two, like you said it, Matt, like of all the years that I've been here, it's not very frequently that we see that citizens have been so close to what's occurring, and in both of these situations the offender purposely went, and to me in a lot of ways was using the public as a shield to try to get away from officers.
Were there, to your knowledge, any bystanders hurt or struck in that first shooting at the market?
No, there were no injuries reported in the thing, but I think it's important that we also talk about that. Like, there may be no physical injuries, but my heart goes out to all those employees, because there has to be psychological and mental anguish that is occurring to these individuals because of what they have been exposed to. And I think it's important that we take a look as a community, and we talk about this over and over again. And I'm telling you, both of these individuals, in my mind, are individuals that should not have been out in the community in the first place. You stab a city bus driver and you go to jail for 3 years. I just want that to sink in with the community. Like, I've said it over and over again. Substance abusers should be getting substance abuse help. People with mental health concerns should be getting mental health resources. But when an individual crosses the line and becomes violent, it is of the utmost importance, if we're going to make this community safe, that they are held accountable and that they're removed for the appropriate amount of time from the community. This is unacceptable, that, and we just seen it now in another part of the state where it's just this process of individuals not being held accountable costs human life or puts others in danger.
That city bus driver, is she okay?
I think, yes, but he survived. Is he still a bus driver?
I don't know.
I don't know that. But.
Back to the second OIS, so I guess depending on whether it's a firearm or any lethal weapon like we saw with the knife there, is it standard to have multiple officers fire at someone? I guess no matter if it's a firearm or a knife?
It is possible. And especially, we have to remember that when we have incidents like this, we deploy a lot of officers. But one of the things we are looking at is, one of the things that really stood out to me in these incidents is we have to look at how we're going to proceed with this, because right now our policy says, we got to give everybody orders. My biggest concern now is we now have 8, 9 people yelling at one individual. And when these situations unfold this way, there's no guarantee that all those 8, 9 people are going to have the same message at the right time. So I think we do have to look to see if there's changes we need to make to ensure that there is one clear order that is being given to individuals. And we are looking at that. That is something we'd have to work with all the parties in our court settlement agreement with to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're meeting all of their needs. But that is just one thing with these large groups that is very concerning to me. And of course, as we get these larger groups, we're going to see larger amounts of shots fired because more officers are discharging their firearm.
And it's unclear if he was actively trying to stab that man or grab him or something. It's not really clear what.
It is. It's very unclear. Like I said, you see him touch him on the back. It's so unclear. But unfortunately, we've had the luxury of sitting here and reviewing 4 different videos. But our officers are out there in real time, and they are jumping out of a car and they're making an assessment, and they're making a decision that they didn't have the luxury to sit back and look at this, think about it, and make a decision based off of that.
Where we're evaluating this, he has a knife in his hand. He is raising the knife above his shoulders and head. We believe he already was willing to use that to stab someone else, and every officer there knew that as they approached him. So there's a little bit more of that context to it.
I have a question about the second rounds that were fired as well. Once he was already on the ground, again, I wasn't there during the moment, I'm watching after the fact, but would it be clear to say you could get closer to fire shots like that, or do you still think people are in danger firing so far away when he's already down?
One of the things I noticed when you noticed, the first volley of shots being fired, obviously we know that some of the victims were in line with the officers. As you proceed to the second round and you start to see that the officers had better angles. So we do know that they were trying to find a better angle at that moment in time, and it's clear from the video that they were trying to. But also at the same time, those are some of the questions that will have to be asked. Was it feasible for us to go hands-on? Were there other options that could have happened? And those are all questions that will take time, and that we'll have to conduct the investigation and get statements from everybody to determine what was appropriate, what was not.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, everybody.
All right, so not much else to talk about with that incident. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching.